Mr Albanese, good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael. Thanks for having me back on the program.
We had the Deputy Prime Minister, Barnaby Joyce, on the program as well about an hour ago. He told us in his view Scott Morrison was neither a psycho nor a fraud, and we may never find the identity of the leaker. Is it time now just to simply move on?
Well, it's time for someone just to come forward and fess up as to who sent that text message. We know that one half of the exchange was Gladys Berejiklian, and for me it wasn't the personal abuse that is there and the character assessments. The most damning indictment of the Prime Minister was the Premier of New South Wales at the time, who was doing a job each and every day on the bushfire crisis, saying that the Prime Minister was more concerned about politics than he was about people at that time.
Politics, as you know, you've been in it for a long time, Anthony Albanese, is a brutal, a robust business. Did you have a there but for the grace of God go I moment when these texts were released?
No, not at all, Michael. From time to time you have exchanges, but what we're seeing here, and this is the real problem, is that the disunity and chaos in the Liberal Party and in the government is meaning they're not actually doing their job. They're not governing. We've got an aged care crisis in this country. We have older Australians who are locked in their rooms, who can't get access to appropriate food and water, who aren't having wounds tended. We have a circumstance whereby we have some 14,000 aged care residents and 17,000 workers have contracted COVID. And the minister goes missing, and when he does turn up, it's to say it's all going exceptionally well. The former New South Wales Premier before Gladys Berejiklian called for the army to be brought in a long time ago now to assist making beds and looking after older Australians. Mike Baird is now a senior person in the aged care sector. He knows that there's a crisis. This government seems oblivious. They're just obsessed by each other. The Liberals don't like each other. The Nats don't like each other. The Liberals don't like the Nationals. The problem here is, though, that Australia isn't getting the government that they deserve at this critical time.
I want to talk more about aged care. It's an issue we've been focusing on very heavily on this show over the last week. Labor wants the government to put a submission into this Fair Work Commission wage case for aged care workers, and I think everybody would agree these people, these aged care workers who have done so much over the last 2 years, deserve more than roughly $21, $23 an hour that they're getting. How much would you like to see their pay increased?
Well, that's up to the Fair Work Commission. It's not up to the government to put a figure on that. What it is up to is for the government to put a submission in.
You must have a figure in mind,
Yes,
though.
I do. No, I don't, Michael. I've been asked this and I give the same answer I gave yesterday. The government should put in a submission supporting a wage increase. That's what we did when we were in government for social and community service workers, and that led to a substantial pay increase, which has led to retention in that workforce. If we don't deal with the issue of wages, then we won't be able to retain a workforce in the aged care sector. The other thing we need, of course, is we need more workers, we need more carers, but we need a nurse in every nursing home. 24/7. We used to call them nursing homes for a reason, because nurses were there. It's extraordinary that we have these aged care facilities that can go for considerable periods of time without having a nurse right there when they're needed.
But in not putting a figure on a wage increase, a proposed wage increase, isn't the Prime Minister right when he says, well, nobody knows how much that will cost the government and therefore taxpayers?
No, the Prime Minister isn't right. The Prime Minister is wrong. The Prime Minister is wrong by not supporting a nurse being in every nursing home. The Prime Minister is wrong by not saying to the Fair Work Commission that he supports a wage increase for the aged care workforce. The Prime Minister is wrong by not having 80,000 aged care residents get their booster shots. The Prime Minister is wrong by not ensuring that every aged care worker and every aged care resident who needs one can get access to rapid antigen test. This is a crisis in the sector, and this minister has failed before, and he continues to fail. What do you have to do to lose your job under this government? If Richard Colbeck had any integrity, he would resign But if the Prime Minister had any leadership and wanted to actually show some, instead of always going missing and always blaming someone else, he would sack this minister and put someone in charge who wants to do the job.
The Prime Minister's keen on creating new jobs in Australia. He used his press club speech to say that he was aggressively going to go for a jobless rate below 4%. Would the Labor Party support that aim?
Well, of course we support people being in jobs. That's a core function of Labor. The issue here is, though, that too many people are in insecure work. They might have been doing 3 or 4 part-time or casual jobs. Now they're doing just 1 or 2, and they're really struggling to get by. The problem here is that wages aren't keeping up with the cost of living, with inflation. And as a direct result of that, we're seeing people's living standards falling, and the Prime Minister isn't addressing issues like childcare that he could address if he adopted Labor's position.
OK, before we go, Peter Dutton on 7:30 last night took a shot at you. He said, yes, you've been in politics for a long time, you've been Deputy Prime Minister, but he said you'd never held a national security or economic portfolio, and he argues you are ill-equipped to be Prime Minister. What do you say to that?
Doesn't that say it all about Peter Dutton and this government? He doesn't think that Minister for Infrastructure for 6 years is an economic portfolio. Infrastructure drives the economy and drives productivity. It's the key, one of the keys to driving productivity. Look, I have been in politics for a while. I've been the Deputy Prime Minister. I've been Leader of the Government in the House of Representatives for 6 years. I chaired the Parliamentary Business Committee. Every single piece of legislation that was debated in the Parliament during the Rudd and Gillard years, I was responsible for putting through the House of Representatives. And I've been acting Prime Minister on 2 occasions, unlike the current incumbent who's been acting as the Prime Minister for 4 years, not fulfilling his job. And Peter Dutton, of course, wanted to lead the Liberal Party. I understand his disappointment. I understand he's out there undermining the Prime Minister at the moment. And we see the chaos that's there. Will be an interesting couple of weeks. I'll say that, Michael, when everyone gathers in Parliament. There'll be the little discussions in the corner. It's all there, the disunity for all to see, not just in the New South Wales branch, but in the caucus as well.
Anthony Albanese, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks very much, Michael.